Hey everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the future race at Aqueduct on Saturday. It is the Wither Stakes, going the demanding 9 furlong distance on the dirt for the 3-year-olds. There are Kentucky Derby qualifying points on the line all across the country on Saturday, Mike. And while this Withers does offer 20 qualifying points to the winner, feels like this is a race that would be a long shot to have a real impact on the first Saturday in May, just given the quality of the field that it attracted.
Agreed. We'll see, how these horses run on Saturday, David, and then, how much more they can improve after that, because they're clearly they all are going to have to take significant steps forward to be in the conversation for a race like the Kentucky Derby.
Let's throw up the field of 7 runners for this Withers, and had a tough time pegging down this morning line, Mike, because so many of these horses have questions to answer, whether it be company or distance, because the 9 furlongs is a real question mark for a lot of these horses trying it in just February of their 3-year-old seasons. And I think that's the big question mark hanging over the number 6 Captain Cook, who I did make the lukewarm 5-2 favorite, was visually impressive breaking his maiden last time, but this will be his first time beyond 7 furlongs.
He's got a lot of questions to answer here. I guess, the good news for Captain Cook is if he can get this far, this is the right kind of field to try it against. There's enough pedigree in the female family to suggest that it's not going to be an issue for him. He's still got to go and prove it, and he's probably going to have to prove it at a short price.
And another positive aspect for the number 6 Captain Cook is this Timeform US pace projector that we're going to take a look at, because it doesn't feel like there's a ton of speed in this race. Maybe the number 5 Mo Quality is a horse that could be a little bit more forward than he's shown on this pace projector, because it sounds like the connections, his trainer in particular, were not exactly happy with how passive the jockey was in the Smarty Jones last time. So maybe he's a little bit more aggressively ridden away from the gate here, but it's not like there's a ton of speed in this race. So it does feel like Captain Cook can make the lead if Manny Franco wants it.
Yeah, I saw him going forward in this race and probably making the lead in here. I understand the trainer of Mo Quality. I understand his frustration with the ride in the Smarty Jones last time. It's not like he ran some kind of terrific race after that, but he ran fine in that race, and it's not like he got a great trip.
And if this pace does heat up, doesn't seem likely, but if that is the case, do note that the number 7, Omaha has the late pace flag over his chiclet. He definitely has the best finishing kick of anybody in this race, just leaves himself a lot to do every time. Let's go through this field in post-position order, beginning with the number 1, Global Steve, who is undefeated in 2 prior starts, both of which came at Parks. We'll take a look at his most recent effort when he won the Future Star Stakes, this going 7 furlongs, the same distance of his debut. He was visually impressive first time out, similarly so in this race, making a big move down the backstretch, angled towards the inside, made up ground, got to the front end around the far turn, and is able to hold off this field late. Mike, I like the visual of both of this horse's races. I just wonder if 9 furlongs is really what he's going to want, especially being a son of Boquero. When you look at the stats, which I like to do in DRF Formulator, breaking down how he does sprints versus routes over every surface, just a lot more success in sprints versus routes for that sire.
I agree that you're right to be concerned with it. I mean, I guess, if this horse can lean a little bit more on his female family, he'll be fine, because there is plenty of distance down there. And he's actually a half to Kelly Ostro, who certainly gets route distances, and he gets it in graded stakes company. So, we'll see. I'm also worried about the sire. I just really like both of his races, David. He showed real ability on debut over the fast track. And when you go back and watch that last one, first of all, he's still very green in that race. He was green on debut, he was still green last time. You could see him there in the stretch, sort of gawking at the stands when they turned in, and then just sort of running in spots. And I also felt like, and you can opine on this, I'm sure you watched the entire replay. He did not look like he loved the wet track in there. He was just he's last early. He's just sort of like jackrabbiting, not running at a level ground. And then he just finally had his riders had to let him go up the inside and let him take over. I don't think he liked that wet track last time.
Yes, trainer Butch Reed actually made some similar comments in his pre-race quotes, indicating that he didn't love the way he was carrying his head so high last time. Like maybe he wasn't loving the surface. They applied a shadow roll, hoping that would fix that issue. It didn't. I think they're planning to leave the shadow roll on for this race. But Butch Reed is a trainer who definitely knows how to win some dirt stakes in New York during the winter. So one that you want to pay attention to. The number 2 is Surfside Moon, who's going to be a big price in this race. And Mike, this is a horse that I think has shown some subtle improvement over the course of his career. didn't look like he really loved sprinting in his first couple starts, but he was kind of staying on at the end of both of those races. I really thought he took a step forward when he stretched out for the first time, albeit on the turf, but just seemed like a horse that was really appreciating the added distance when he broke his maiden last August at Delaware. And I did not like the ride or trip that he got in the Laurel Futurity after that when he got back on dirt. Was just off a little slowly, was shuffled back at a couple points during the race, heavy traffic in upper stretch, and he did get loose at the very end of that race, but the race had already gotten away from him at that point. So I don't feel like that performance is nearly as bad as it looks on paper. And then he faced some tough horses on the turf last time. I'm not convinced that he's necessarily a turf horse, even though he won on that surface. And I just think distance really works for this horse. He's getting a big jockey upgrade for this race. And his trainer is another one that can certainly win with prices at NYRA over the past several years.
I'm just gonna agree with everything you just said, David, and not go into this too much. I mean, this horse, when they finally stretched him out, I know it was a different surface. I really liked that win for him on the grass. He had enough trouble in the lower futurity to want to say, let's give this horse another chance back on dirt. His pedigree is versatile, so I do think there's a chance he's at least as good on dirt as he is on turf.
The number 3 is Corvus, who is another one who looks like he's going to have no trouble with the distance. He's only got up to a mile so far, but he certainly finishes off those races like a mile and an eighth is not going to be a problem. The issue with him, like a few in this field, Mike, is he's just such a plotter. He has no early speed. He picks up pieces at the end. That was the case last time when he was no match for Sand Devil, who unfortunately is not back in this race. He would have been a heavy favorite if he were. I like the progression from a speed figure standpoint. I just feel like he would need another step forward to be competitive with this group.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Listen, his first 2 starts against other winners have come against, good horses, Cyclone State and Sandella. He wasn't close at the end either time. I guess if you like him, and the pace projector that we look at too also works against this horse in a big way. If you like him, you're just hoping he loves 9 furlongs and everybody else hates it.
The number 4 is Uncle Jim, a runner that I think the connections had high hopes for after his debut was so visually impressive. Took money that day to get bet down to 6-5 and ran like a horse that would have upward potential after that, overcoming a poor start, some traffic, came through along the inside to win pretty impressively, but the speed figure came back pretty slow. This horse would have been a heavy favorite if he was allowed to be wagered upon last time when he tried allowance company, but because his stablemate was a late scratch, he had to run for purse money only, and was pretty disappointing in there, Mike. I mean, he chased the winner Cyclone State around the track, was kind of traveling after that foe at the top of the stretch and just couldn't really kick on with the winner that day. Now, I suppose you could say it's a positive that Cyclone State and the runner-up came back to finish first and third in the Jerome, but I guess you have to decide for yourself how strong you think the Jerome really was compared to this race.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, more than anything else, it just feels like he won't be a good price in this race once again. And he didn't run well last time. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some kind of excuse for it. And it's not like Cyclone State isn't a nice horse. He is. This horse to me did not run well in that allowance race last time. And I get it. He's got enough pedigree to stretch out here, and Cox is going to stick with him and enter him in this race. And so maybe he'll just run way better here. But again, he's 3-1 on the morning line. You made him 3-1, David. He's going to be around there, if not a little shorter. And I'm not betting him at that price.
The number 5 is Mo Quality, who, from a pure talent standpoint, I think has to rank right towards the top of this field in terms of horses that have already run speed figures that should be good enough to win this race. He did that in his second start when he broke his maiden with an 83 buyer going the 6.5 furlong distance at Churchill Downs. Really showed some progression from first start to second start with that improved tactical speed to get the job done. And then last time they stretched him out in the Smarty Jones all the way out to the mile and a 16th distance. And like we were talking about, Mike, just not an aggressive ride early. There wasn't a whole lot of speed signed on in this race outside of Kale's Angel, who did not get an aggressive ride as well. And it just seemed like every jockey in this field could not back down the pace enough. And it benefited the horse who was right up front, Cole Battle, who might have been the strongest finisher anyway, and nobody could go with him towards the end of this race. Didn't love the way that Mo Quality was hanging on his left lead through most of the stretch, but once he did switch over to his right lead, he kind of found an extra gear. So maybe that means he can improve going the mile and an eighth distance. I still have some questions about that, though.
Yeah, me too. That was my main concern with him too. I get it. The ride wasn't perfect last time, and they probably could have been more aggressive with him. Obviously, the winner did get the more aggressive ride and took advantage. And Cole Battle, listen, he's far from a star, but he's one of the more underrated 3-year-olds out there right now. Anyway, I don't know, man. This horse ran fine last time, but I didn't think he ran great with the added distance. Personally, I like his sprints better than the one route so far. I'm not sure that getting up to 9 furlongs necessarily helps him in here, but maybe he just gets a better trip and he runs better.
The number 6 is Captain Cook, a horse who actually sold at auction for $410,000 after his debut. He was part of that Mary Lou Whitney Stables dispersal, and the Connect they certainly wanted to get this horse for quite a price based on that debut race, and seemed like the bettors knew that he was going to run a lot better when he made his first start for the Rick Dutrow barn last time at Aqueduct. We'll take a look at the replay of that race. He was absolutely hammered down to 1-2 odds, despite the fact that he didn't have a major speed figure edge over his main rival this day. Well, he battled that horse into the stretch and easily put him away, ultimately drawing off to win by over 9 lengths. The way he won this race, Mike, you would suggest that at a distance should be right up his alley. You look at his pedigree, though, and it's not like it's concrete that he's built to go this distance, being by Practical Joke out of an Indian Charlie mare. There's, some sprinter miler influences on the bottom side. If you go a little deeper, there's more stamina there. I'm not convinced that 9 furlongs is definitely what this horse wants, but he clearly has talent based on the last race.
Yeah, I mean he does. He can. It's if sometimes it's just about who you're running against, David. I mean, maybe he's just in the right spot here to try stretching out, because he did. I thought he had enough trouble in his debut to want to be really lenient on him. And when he came back last time, we saw the replay. It was on a wet track. He really only had one horse to worry about in there. That's the third place finisher out loud. But you know what? He raced that horse, and he put that horse away. And I thought he was pretty impressive doing it. You mentioned his pedigree. You have to go back to the third generation, really. But it's Birdtown and Birdstone, all the horses who wanted to go long. I don't know, man. I'm not going to sit here and suggest I'd love him at a short price, but this is a good spot for this horse.
Well, we've been talking about distance concerns for a lot of these horses. If nobody to the inside of Omaha, the number 7, wants to go the 9 furlongs, you can be pretty confident this horse is going to be picking them up at the end, because he is a plotter who just wants to go every bit of added ground that he can get. I think we saw that when he won the 2 turns the only time in his, actually, I shouldn't say that. All 4 of his first few starts were around 2 turns, but he went the longest distance, 1.16 miles, in his start 2 back, where he won going away at Laurel. We'll take a look, though, at his most recent start in the Jerome, where he actually cut back to the 1 turn for the first time. This was going the 1 mile distance, and Cyclone State had just stuck away from this field by this point in the race. But Omaha was finishing on pretty well at the end, and here it doesn't look like he's going to get within 3.5 lengths of the winner at the wire, but he just keeps on plugging away and is picking up ground all the way to the finish line. Mike, this horse has so much stamina on the bottom side of his pedigree. The dam is a full sister to Big Blue Kitten, who wanted to go 1.5 miles.
Yeah, wanted to go 1.5 miles, and he wanted to do it on turf too. But listen, where this horse is going to be early in here, David, because he just doesn't have any speed at all. And we've already talked about the pace projector a little bit. Feels like they might not be going that fast in front of him. But he is a horse who he'll be running at the end of this race, and maybe some of the other horses will not be, because we've already talked about a lot of the horses who, they've got to answer that question of whether they want to go this far. Omaha wants to go this far.
Let's throw up our picks for this Withers. And Mike, you're going to lean in the direction of the number 1, Global Steve, who, like a lot of these, has questions to answer regarding the distance, but just really like what you've seen from him in both replays.
Yeah, I do. I think he is talented enough to go with these horses. I am. I'm very worried about the distance with this horse. We've already talked about it, but I have the same questions about some of the other horses at much shorter prices. So I'll take Global Steve at around the line that you pegged him at, David. Here, he's got a great post on the inside. I do think he has enough speed early to get into position, and then we'll just see if he can get the distance.
And in races like this, where I think there's so much uncertainty about a lot of the short prices, I just want to find a horse that I think is going to appreciate the conditions of the race. And I think that could be the number 2, Surfside Moon, who I do believe wants to go the 2 turns. I think he might be a better dirt horse than it looks on paper. And it's just going out for a trainer that I've seen over the years send prices to Naira that might not look good enough, but they've outrun the odds often enough for me to take a shot with the number 2, Surfside Moon. So 2, 6, 7, 4 for me, 1, 5, 4, 2 for Mike. In race 7 at Aqueduct, the Withers on Saturday. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.